Hey everybody, how you doing? Chad here. Hope you are well. Today's a cool day because Ryan CHARTRAND and I are dropping a video together. Ryan is a former law enforcement officer in Massachusetts. We connected on LinkedIn. We are the same kind of guy, and our conversations and our relationship has grown quickly. And it's been easy because him and I see eye to eye on things. And Ryan left law enforcement and got into the financial services sector. I left and became an entrepreneur. So we really wanted to start collaborating, making content together, and we're going to do that. We're going to make videos and do interviews and have guests on. We're really going to get into the weeds on topics that could really help first responders, law enforcement officers that are thinking about transitioning from law enforcement into business or the private sector or anything. We're here to help and hopefully lay a framework, groundwork. We've walked that path and help everybody transition and get back to feeling happy and purposeful and fulfilled. So we're going to have a lot of fun. Today's the first interview Ryan and I did together, and we're excited, and hopefully this is the first of many more. So let's do it. Hey Ryan, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Nothing much. So just a little background for everyone listening out there or watching. Chad and I met through the LinkedIn platform, and we met through our network there. We have very similar backgrounds, and we have, I guess, similar current statuses too in what we're doing out there and everything. So we connected there. We thought it would be great to hop on, have a conversation. So we did that, and we connected that way. And then at the end, we said, boy, we should have recorded that conversation. That was a great conversation. So we figured we'd hop on again and kind of do a recording this time. We're not going to redo our conversation or anything like that. We're just going to have it go naturally like we did before and kind of touch on some of the same subjects to see what y'all think. And yeah. So
Yeah.
Chad, what's your background, man? Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. First, this is awesome how we connected, and we're going to do this because the reason that we're doing this is we feel the passion to help other law enforcement officers, other possibly first responders that are thinking of transitioning out of the profession. And something we both just did recently, and it's been cool to connect with you because we do have the same background, but also the same experience in leaving law enforcement. So I think it's a great idea. We're doing this to help others, and we can kind of walk and trailblaze for others and maybe do things we didn't do or do things we did do. I don't know, but it's kind of cool because I didn't meet so many people on LinkedIn and social media that are like us, that not a lot of them out there, but that were former law enforcement, left recently to get into business or whatever they're doing. And it's been pretty cool.
Absolutely.
And it makes me realize, right, that we can do it. Like there is this fear that consumes us because I think we come into law enforcement, we think you get paid every 2 weeks, compensation package is great, benefits are awesome, pension, it's a great job, it's very rewarding, giving back to the community, serving the community. You just are in this mindset that this is all I'm going to do or I'm all capable of doing, and there's so much more that we're able to do. And this is a reminder of, if you love what you do, and the goal is, in my opinion, the goal is to make it all 25 years, a full career. But
Absolutely.
it doesn't mean everybody does. And you might be finding yourself in 12, 13, 14 years, kind of like I was, and you're thinking, I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to try something new. For whatever the reason, the motivations were, I want to do something totally different. And we're in this construct of, you might not make it or it might not work out for you, but it's all fears and insecurities that feed it, because really we are determiners of our success and our future and where we go. So about me, Ryan, did 13 years in law enforcement in suburban Philadelphia, just north of Philadelphia. Did patrol, promoted to detectives, did undercover narcotics for a couple of years. Towards the end, finished doing kind of major crimes, violent person crimes, and but being a detective at an agency, not in a city, you're doing every kind of case. So and then when I was approaching my 12th year, I kind of hit a roadblock. And that roadblock kind of some obstacles, personal challenges, whatever you want to say, both internal and external,
set me down a road of looking to leave law enforcement, which I did. And now I own a company. It's Intercounty Investigations and Solutions. We're a PI firm in Pennsylvania. We specialize in pre-employment background screens for municipal government and private industry. Before law enforcement, I was in the military for 8 years with the U.S. Army Infantry. And I went in 98, just graduated high school at 17 years old. And it's funny, at 17, I thought I was a man. Looking back on it, man, I didn't know anything about the world. Who does?
No kidding, huh?
It's crazy, right? So I did that for 8 years, served in Iraq, served a combat tour in Iraq, got out in 06, and then I went into the police academy in 07. So pretty much for the last 21 years, I was carrying a rifle, carrying a gun. And so that was part of my decision-making process to leaving the job and doing something different. How about you, brother?
Absolutely. I just want to say, about what you mentioned, and that, I know I, for one, when I was just connected with people in my immediate local area and I was, thinking about leaving and everything, I felt like I was alone. And I didn't realize that there were so many people out there like us that were in similar situations that took the action, that decided that they were going to move on, they were going to find something better, and were doing that. And it's been awesome to meet people like you out there that are in the process of doing that, and work towards what we want to do, is build a community of all of those people to come together and support one another. But
totally.
Similar to you, I graduated college in 2003, and I started as a police officer right at the same time. So I was actually, I started in my hometown in Massachusetts. And back then, it was a while back, and they actually would let you work patrol shifts on a part-time basis to fill in when the full-timers weren't available.
Nice.
And it was right after 9/11. I always say, when I graduated high school, if you wanted to be a police officer here, the thing was to go and get a college degree. They always wanted college degrees, and that's what I did. After 9/11, again, that changed. They wanted military veterans again. So when 9/11 happened, I was almost done with college. I was in the process of entering the police department already, or else I probably would have ended up going to the service and taking that route. But I always like to tell the story of, I was about 22 years old, 23 years old, in that ballpark. And I was starting, and we had an old gruff police chief. He probably started his police career in the late 60s, if not, early 70s at the latest.
Old school.
And he was old school, all right, to the point where he gave me a badge and a gun. He handed it to me and he said, "Here you go, sport. It's sink or swim." And I went out on patrol. And when you look back, you think you know everything. I think the first call I got, I realized that I didn't know a damn thing. And I was like, oh God, I'm in over my head here. I went along with it. Luckily, I didn't get myself or anyone else killed. And, I was forced to grow up damn quick.
Wow.
With that experience. But, my dream growing up was always, it's all I ever wanted to do, was be a police officer in my hometown. And unfortunately, it didn't work out because of staffing and layoffs. And the closer I got to a full-time position, they started laying people off. So I ended up transferring to another police department, where I worked for 14 years on a full-time basis. Not the experience that you had, Chad, because I spent my time on patrol. I did some work in traffic and accident reconstruction, but we were a department of about 40, if we could keep it at that. And there wasn't a lot of besides getting promoted, there really wasn't a lot to do outside of patrol. So that's what I spent the majority of my career doing.
So what year did you leave?
So I finished in 2020.
Wow.
And it was tough, because actually, I didn't want people to think that I was leaving because of the political climate. It was right around the time of that the George Floyd incident happened.
Yeah.
And my last memory of working was when I got ordered in to work the protest.
Wow.
And as we were working to protect all of the protesters, they were yelling "F the police" in our faces, and it was just very ironic. And just you shake your head at that. You don't know what to think, And so I'd actually written down in my journal in 2019. I gave myself a 1-year date And I said, July 20th, 2020 is going to be my last day. I wrote that in my journal in 2019. And I made it happen.
Dude, that's incredible, man. You wrote that down. It's funny. I had the same experience. I wrote down when I was going to leave. I wrote down January 2021, and this is, I don't know when this was, middle of 2020. And this is to the point. I pretty much made my mind. I'm going to leave, and I'm a big like goal action person. If I don't write it down, if I don't speak it into existence, it's not going to happen. It's just a thought. So same thing as you. I wrote it down and ended up being the exact same thing as you. It's another thing I didn't know about you, but both wrote it down and it both came to fruition.
So I know one thing we really wanted to touch on, and I guess we'll move to that is, what was your experience in the department that made you realize that, you know what, number one, I'm not, I don't want to stay here. This isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I was going through some personal stuff. I always battled self-esteem. So my whole life, thinking back to my childhood, I at moments, I don't remember being debilitating, but there are periods of just really low self-esteem, not feeling worthy, not feeling like I fit in, not feeling like I belong here. And then I went into the military, and it's a very merit-based system. Everyone's got shaved heads. And I know I'm going long story here, but I kind of segue. It makes more sense when I give the backstory. But everyone's got shaved heads. You just have your last name and uniform. And I remember my drill sergeant saying something to the effect is, I don't care where you're from, who your mommy, who your daddy is, what you look like. You all look the same to me. And whoever's going to have success as a soldier defending this great country is because they're going to put the work in. And this has really resonated with me. I was always a hardworking kid growing up, but maybe lacked the talent in some things that, maybe sports or something that I love sports growing up. But if you're not, the top 10%, you're not going to be a great player. You got to have talent to play good sports. And so even though I was like one of the first ones to practice, last ones to leave, really put the work in, it never came to fruition the way I wanted it to. So going to the military and having that affirmation that, man, I go out and I'm going to go out. I'm going to be the first one in formation, the last one to leave. I'm going to bust this thing. And it took off. I mean, it really, was able to get promoted quickly multiple times, and things really went my way. What I learned looking back on it, which I only realized in the last year or so, is that was kind of a mask for the self-esteem that was there. I never really addressed that. So in my mind now, as an adult in my 20s, I'm having all this success, I finally made it. That stuff's not going to come back. But that's really not what happened. As I got into my law enforcement career and was also having a lot of success, things were going well. And I think I was masking the fact that I sometimes struggle with self-esteem. So that's a personal issue to me that I was dealing with that really started to come back up in 2019. And ironically, 2019, we went through a lot of changes in our police department. We had a new command staff that came in, a new administration, and they had, different ways of doing things. And there was a point where we took a promotional exam. I didn't do as well as I would have hoped. And I was a detective then. And in June of 2019, it's kind of a funny story. My partner and I were making an arrest for an attempted homicide, two co-defendants. It was like a shooting incident at a house. And we finally, after months and months of investigation, we get arrest warrants, we make an arrest. We dropped the male half of this party at the county prison, maybe got there at 9 o'clock at night, dropped them off. I went home and slept. And came in the next day, maybe 7:38, got a little early, was doing paperwork at my desk. Now, my whole detective career, I was fortunate to do a lot of great things and had a lot of success, and it's never about me, it's about the team and everybody we operated with. But I was able to do some things that really, frankly, at my agency was never done before. So I created this undercover unit that was never in existence before, and there was a need for it. Crime was rising. So all these great things. So I kind of, I felt very safe and secure in my position as a detective just because doing things that haven't been done there before. So my supervisor comes in and says, "Hey, chief wants to see you." I said, "Oh, okay." And this is a new chief who we've had a personal relationship because he was coming from the agency. And I go into his office. Now, what do you think the first thing when I'm walking up the hallway to see the chief? What do you think I'm thinking in my head?
You're going to get a nice attaboy for hunting down those attempted homicide suspects.
Totally. So I walk in there with definitely like a false sense of security. Chief asked me to sit down. He's sitting behind a table. The lieutenant's sitting next to him. And right away, you know those, if you've ever been in those. And I'm a guy who's never been in discipline, never been in trouble, never was written up. I think I got in a couple of car accidents as a police officer, like minor stuff, but never, no discipline issues like that. So it was kind of new to me, but I knew something was odd. And I sit down, and within the first 30 seconds, chief says, "Hey, I'm going to send you back to patrol. And, I think there's a need for you there." And I remember having a tear come down my cheek. First of all, I love being a detective. It was my passion. I love doing it. Second of all, it's not why I was being called in the office. So I totally was caught off guard that way emotionally. And it was a very frank and direct, not bad, not a negative conversation, just a very direct, "We're sending you back to patrol. I think that's where you get out more use for the agency." And I remember actually crying, I have a tear coming out, and tell them, "If you think that's where I deserve to be, then I'll be a good team player like I always do, and I'll do it." What happened was, when that happened, and we can get into all this other factors about it, but what happened was that singular incident, going back to my self-esteem, reopened the self-esteem wounds that were kind of dormant for most of my adult life. And I went down quickly went down a bad rabbit hole of poor mental health, low self-esteem, not feeling worthy. And Ryan, I know we talked about this before, but this is really one of my motivations for what we're doing is identity. This profession, law enforcement, is a noble profession. It's a great profession, but it's not who we are. I mean, you're Ryan, I'm Chad, you're a husband, I'm a husband, you're a son, I'm a son, you're a neighbor, I'm a neighbor. And my problem with that is my identity was a detective. I remember walking down the hallway in my head thinking, I started as a patrolman in my 20s. It's an entry-level position. Nothing wrong with that. But then I kind of wanted to keep going the other way. And now going back to patrol, in my mind, I'm thinking I'm a failure. What did I do wrong? Finally, everybody exposed you for the fraud you are. Remember, these are thoughts I've kind of always had from time to time. So, and I think professional success and accolades kind of masked and fed the wolf, but without really ever dealing with the self-esteem part. So my identity was a detective. I'm thinking, I can't tell anybody I'm not a detective anymore. How am I going to live with that? I mean, it's embarrassing. My own family's going to be embarrassed about me. So within 4 months of that, it got to a point where I was just drinking extremely heavy, 3 or 4 double IPA. I'm not a big drinker. I'm a social drinker. Events, happy hour, weddings, something like that. But I found myself drinking every day, 3 or 4 like double IPAs, starting at 10 in the morning on my off days. Remember, being a detective, I was at work Monday through Friday every week. So I felt purposeful, felt valuable. Now on patrol, we work 12-hour shifts. Did you work 12s there?
We were 8s.
8, okay. So I was doing 12s. You're there for a longer number of shifts. You worked less number of shifts a month. So like random Monday, Tuesdays, Fridays, I'm off. Didn't feel normal, felt weird, felt like I'm not being valuable, purposeful. So it got to the point in September 2019. So 4 months later, I thought about ending my life. And, I remember I didn't have a plan in intent, so that was a good thing. But being a peer advocate on our critical incident stress management team, having all this training, I kind of recognized the signs of myself when I sat there and thought my family would be better off without me. I'd be saving everybody a lot of heartache. They wouldn't be embarrassed anymore. Like in my mind, I'm thinking all these thoughts aren't true, but it's irrational and very logical. But that's kind of where I got to. And luckily it didn't go any further because I recognized immediately. I mean, I remember starting to panic, breathing heavy, sweating profusely. I'm in my bathrobe on my front porch at like noon or 11:30 a.m. on my second or third beer. And that's when I realized, like, I need help. I need help now. So I remember cold calling, Googling a therapist, crying, leaving crying voicemails. Please help me. I need help. And, and you said this earlier about being alone. I mean, I absolutely felt like, and I've been fortunate in life to hopefully have a lot of healthy and functional and good relationships because I made an effort to do that. But I felt at that point absolutely alone, isolated. Nobody in the world knows what I'm going through. And it's crazy because it's not true, but nobody in the world knows what I'm going through. Nobody's ever been going through what I'm going through. I'm so alone. And that's where the hopelessness sets in. The only way out of this is to take my life. And luckily, by me, God willing, I immediately recognized the signs and started getting therapy, getting help. But, most people think I left because of the 2020 riots, because I was there in 2020. And that had 0%. I mean, not one consideration. I had great relationships with people in the street, always was respectful, put a lot of effort into building good relationships. So really while it's still multifaceted, my issues were stemming from stuff going inside my own agency, just feeling like, my core values are important to me: honesty, integrity, loyalty, selflessness, courage, that's kind of like a blueprint for my life. I think we should all live by values. And I started to feel like my values of selflessness and integrity and honor were different from where I was working at, unfortunately. And I just felt like as I started to get clear-minded, going through therapy, really now getting back to who Chad is as a person, as a son, as a husband, as a father, I realized that my core values just didn't line up anymore with where I was working at. And so many great people that still work there, so I love them all. But I just had to make that decision to leave and try something new. And I don't know if you're the same way as me, but I really overanalyze things, but once I make that decision, there's no going back. I mean, there were times when wife's like, "You sure you want to do this?" We were a close family. "Sure you want to do this?" But in my mind, I knew, like, once I made that decision and it's in line with my core values, I felt like a phony or fraud if I would continue to stick it out and grind it out like so many cops do. And I know you know so many that they just feel like I have to do it. This is the only option I have. I got to get to 25 years. My wife doesn't work, which I understand. My spouse doesn't work, so I have to do this. Totally get it. I never felt that way. I have to believe in what I'm doing. I have to be passionate about it. And if I'm not, and I can't look myself in the mirror and be proud of the reflection that's looking back at me, I have to do something new. So that part was actually rather easy. The transition since leaving has been challenging, getting used to being an entrepreneur and a business owner. But the decision itself was pretty simple once I started to get my wits about me.
Right. Oh, that's an incredible story, man.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, it's actually the first time I was told that story, out loud, publicly, other than my close friends and family. So, yeah. But I feel like, man, if we're going to make an impact, bro, we have to start being honest with ourselves. We got to start being honest with each other. And I think that's the part of the criminal justice reform of 2020. I heard a lot of executives that very seasoned in the profession a long time talk about police reform. What do we need to do? There's a lack of training, a lot of things that came out. But what I really never heard is these executives is coming out in a press conference in public and saying, "Hey, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe police leadership is the problem." Because I come from a school of thought in the military. The leader is responsible for everything, good and bad. So, if things aren't going well, you're the one that I've seen leaders get relieved of their position, decorated. Commanders get relieved of their command simply for the act of one of their personnel in their company did, that even they didn't have any relation to. Where now, you see a lot of chiefs that a lot of executives that point the finger, and when things go bad, they want to throw somebody under the bus and blame them. What happened to that personal accountability and responsibility? So there needs to be a leadership shift in law enforcement. And that's the thing we're not really talking about. And I get it. It's hard. It's hard to say I'm the problem. It's hard to say I'm the reason this is going bad. It's hard to say I'm the reason my relationships aren't as strong as they could be. It's hard to say I'm the reason why my people aren't enjoying where they're working at. They're leaving. They're leaving and they're looking at other jobs, which I'm not the only one, by the way, where I used to work at. So we have to figure out in this profession where we want to go. And once we figure out where we want to go, then we have to be figuring out how can we get there. And that requires the honest part. And that's the part that's tough, So how about you, brother?
I think I just want to touch on that. And that's key, man, and it's one thing, extreme ownership, as Jocko Willink calls it, and it is so hard to look at a situation and take your part in it and admit to your part and open up to, okay, things are, what is my role in the way that things are right now?
Yeah.
But I will tell you my experience personally adopting that, you're in just for the better when you do that. Everything around you changes.
Totally right.
I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but because I think my, everything that happened to me happened for me. It didn't happen to me. I'm meant to be where I am. But I definitely say if I knew what I know about leadership now, when I was a police officer, I think my entire career would have been different.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point.
But it's not, and ultimately, by the time I started learning about leadership and accepting extreme ownership and realizing what I could do to be the change in my agency, my mindset was already far beyond staying with the police department. I already had my mind set on bigger goals.
Yeah, it makes so much sense.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, you've got a hell of a story there. I feel like I can't even live up to that story.
Man, that's now.
But
you got a great story. You told me about it before.
I'm one. I internalize things. I'm not really one that's going to, I think it's like a lot of police officers. We don't talk about it. We don't want to tell other people about it, especially, where the problem fixes. We're not supposed to have problems. We're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be to show up and deal with everything that we get sent to deal with.
Yeah.
And we're just supposed to walk away unchanged and continue about our day with a smile on our face. And, it doesn't happen like that. So, my challenge was, I think it was twofold. It was, one part of it was the things that you experience on the job. I mean, it doesn't matter. You're going to experience things that the regular person will never experience in their lives. And if they do, they might experience one of those things, once in a while. But the things that we're exposed to on a regular basis that we have to deal with, and they don't teach us how to process that. They don't deal with it. And, one of my last, kind of, I guess you could call it a critical incident that I remember. And it was a woman who shot herself in the head. And I wasn't far away. I was the first one there. And I know, going in, my number one concern is, all right, there's a gun involved. Am I safe? My safety, is someone shooting at me? What's the real situation? And going in, making sure the scene was safe, securing the firearm, switching to first aid mode, managing the people, helping get the woman out. I just remember, the scene was over, the woman's off to the hospital, and I look and I literally had brain and hair and everything all.
Wow.
And my arms and all of that stuff. And I remember looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, like, I feel like this should bother. I'm kind of, it was a very, very weird feeling out of myself for how I performed. And why doesn't this bother me? It should, but I don't know. It was just a very, very weird feeling. And yeah, it was, excuse me.
Wow.
Yeah, I wrote that story. So it's just, those are things that, it's just a career of things like that. And then on the flip side, I remember as a young officer, I was doing a ride along. I wasn't even a patrolman yet. And I had, one of the police officers told me, from this job comes from what you deal with out on the street, but it comes from inside of that building. And that is, it's huge. And it's true. I worked my career in my agency. We didn't feel like we had, the backing of the upper management. They would, they didn't, that their actions spoke otherwise. And I don't mean that as a blanket, because I had some phenomenal supervisors that stood up for us, mostly, the very, very upper top, and just a lot of different characters. And, as I learned more and more about, those were our leaders. No wonder why no one is happy here.
Right, it's true. It's totally.
As far as that, that mental health wise, I mean, I got to a point where it was tough for me to function. It was tough for me to go to work. I would come home and just sit like a zombie, just sit and stare. And all that would be going through my mind is, what is wrong with me? Why do I feel like this? What is wrong with me? I have everything in the world. I have a beautiful, beautiful wife and kids. I have a home. We're all healthy. Why am I feeling like this? And I would dread going to work. I'd go to work. I'd sit in my car. I'd sit in my police car out there. I'd find a place to hide where I would hope no one would find me and just sit. And it was so ironic because I would hope that I would not get sent to any calls. However, when I did get sent to calls, it would snap me out of that because I'd go into work mode and I'd be, your mind would be out of that black hole that you were letting it go in. You'd be back into work mode. And then after that, you just go back to sitting and staring and what's wrong with me. And
right.
The scary part is, and thinking about this is, every once in a while, one of your brother officers would see you sitting there and they'd pull up alongside you to chat and see what you were up to or whatever. And you'd sit there and talk to them like nothing was wrong. You'd bullshit, you'd, bitch about the department a little bit, chat about what was going on, this, that, and the other thing. You would never ever even think of talking about what was really going on in your mind at that moment. And you wonder how many other cops is there. And even when their friends pull up, they're not even going to tell their friends.
Right. Oh my gosh. So what do you think it is about that? Like, I mean, I have my thoughts on it, but what do you think? Why do you think the profession is so lacking in that, where most of us are struggling with something or another, or we will at some point in our career, yet nobody says anything? I mean, what's your thoughts on why that is?
I mean, from the very beginning, that stuff. You know, I mean, I bet you half of the stuff that they taught us in the police academy, I probably never learned. I never used out on the road. You know, it's you know, it's state mandated stuff that people that don't even go out on the road are saying you need to learn this to be a police officer.
Right.
And ultimately, no one cares about you. They care about you as the soldier going out and answering calls.
So
you know,
true.
there's not that belief of caring for the actual person. I mean, I think it's common in a lot of companies too. You know, it's like you're a cog in the wheel. You know, we're answering 911 calls, we're dealing with the stuff out on the street and cleaning it up, and we go home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Ultimately, when we leave at the end of, you work a 32-year career and you leave, the next day they don't even remember your name.
Bro, I know. I'm like, I was there 13 years, and it's like, you know, everybody moves on. Nobody reaches out anymore. They just ignore you. And that's probably for everybody. So yeah, you're right about that.
You could go on vacation for a week and they forget you existed. You know, they're just happy to have the, you know, and not to mention, I mean, with seniority, you know, guys, let's see you go.
Right, right.
They get a better shift bid, might get them off of nights. They get your specialty position if you have one. You know, they're ready to see you go. They hope you go.
Dude, you are hitting on something that is so, and I was talking about this today with a captain of a police department. There are only so many positions that go around: detective, traffic unit, sergeant's promotion. And it creates nothing but once a year, there's some sort of angling or infighting or scheming or scamming. It's brutal. I mean, it's absolutely brutal that most agencies have that. I mean, it's just, I never got that. I feel like if you work hard and you have the goods, that's going to take you where you want to go. But then we could talk about the good old boy system and other things that, you know, law enforcement, I think, still exist and is still kind of very prevalent to, you know, people having their ideas how they should fill or staff their agency. But I think that infighting part is just created from the lack of opportunities and people wanting better skills. I mean, law enforcement is a tough job. Then you're working patrol, you're working nights and weekends, you're swinging your shifts. And then you see a detective or a traffic unit, steady days. Everybody wants it, regardless if you want to do traffic or not. You want that job because it's better for your family, your personal life, which makes complete sense. But then it just creates a lot of infighting and breeds contentment and resentment. And it's a tough thing in the profession. So do you still talk to cops? I mean, you still have people, not only you worked with, but people that you started networking with since you're not in law enforcement anymore that reach out, ask for advice or guidance or things like that?
So I had, it was probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago where over the course of 10 days, I had 4 police officers reach out to me asking various questions about leaving.
Wow.
Going into, you know, for various reasons and going into different industries. And it ranged from, you know, what are the options with the pension to, you know, what do you think about this? And what did you do? How about you?
Yeah, me too. I mean, almost daily, definitely weekly. You know, people I used to work with, old agency that want to leave, other agencies, neighboring my agency want to leave, that reach out to me. It's something about leaving the job that people feel more comfortable talking because it's, I mean, what I've experienced is like, hey, I think there's a lot of cops that want to leave, a lot, but not many do. And then so when there is somebody that leaves, it's like, hey, they did it. Let me reach out and find out, hey, what's going on, bro? What was your mindset? What was your thoughts? What happened? This and that. So it's kind of cool and unintentionally being some sort of like big brother to some of these guys that want to go. And it's crazy how consistent the reasons are why people want to leave. It's a little bit to do with the resentment from the community. It's a lot to do with the trauma that you touched about earlier. I mean, the things a police officer see, it's not normal. We don't address the mental health aspect in the profession, not nearly enough. I mean, we tell people, our health insurance providers reimburse guys who go to the gym. They're like, so they got big guns, you know, all tatted up. Damn, great. But we don't do anything for this. And it blows my mind how we don't do that, considering all the negative things we see. So that's a big factor. But the overwhelming majority is the dysfunction, the poor culture, the toxicity, the bad morale
Yes.
in their agency. It blows my mind how more leaders are not trying to address this. It's almost like they don't care, or to properly address it, I'm going to have egg on my face too, and nobody wants that. It's
Right.
Takes a strong person to admit that I'm not doing as good a job as I think I can do.
Yeah, there were a couple of things that I, we see the things about the officers killed in the line of duty all the time. See their stats. And I realized that age-wise, I was getting into that heavy portion, being right around 40 years old, and time on the job in that 14-year mark. This is the time that officers most frequently, the most common age and time on the job that they get killed. And I started to notice things myself, and that was your everything gets so routine in what you do. I started to notice a complacency.
Oh yeah.
And I started, there was one time it was a, your regular unknown, it was on a commuting time, busy road, person was speeding. I walk up, I talk to her, it was no big deal. Give her the talk about, okay, just try and keep your speed down, go back to my car. I realized I never even turned on my portable radio.
Wow.
And I said, what if it wasn't home from work? What if it was a bad guy that just robbed a store or something and he shot me?
Wow.
I realized my radio wasn't even on, and I realized, I said, you're starting to get complacent. Get out of here before you get killed.
Yeah.
And, someone said to me that, I said something about, couldn't wait till I could retire. And someone said, don't waste away the next 20 years of your life. And that really, I said, is this how I want to live for the next, it was at that point, about, it was probably close to 15, 20 years of my life. I said, I can't do that. I can't live like this for that long.
Wow. Man, I applaud your courage to make that change. I mean, how many cops do you know? I know many. I'm sure you know many that refuse to be that self-aware. They just want to collect a paycheck. They want to build their pension. Who cares about quality of life? I'm building money and building, security. Not that that's not important, but I feel too much emphasis is placed on everything but your mental health.
So it's definitely, there's a huge mindset shift that has to happen.
Yeah.
Because I was there. So, I'd be going in for, I'd work from 7 a.m. to 11 at night, go home, catch a couple hours sleep, be back for 7 a.m. again, because all right, make money, work overtime, blah, blah, blah. That's what we do. And I actually told myself, hey, this is the life you smile and take it. It's the life you chose. And then I realized that, what? No, it doesn't have to be this way. I can. Now that you're, what is it that you do?
So we have a private investigation firm now, and we do, the core part of our business is pre-employment background screening for municipal managers, police chiefs, finance directors. So people that work in local government, really trying to move that into the private industry too, because I think there's just as much as a need, if not more, to properly thorough and screen candidates. But so that's what we do for our business. But the cool thing about being an entrepreneur running a company is I have so much more say in my future, so much more control. Being in law enforcement, I know many people are watching this are going to relate to opportunity is based on timing. It's based on politics. It's based on merit. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not that you just work hard and you're going to get promoted. It doesn't happen in law enforcement. You have to work hard and have success, and there has to be an opening, and all the political climates have to line up. Maybe you have somebody really advocating for you up top. Well, that's going to help you, as opposed to the other way. It's not going to help you. So I know a lot of cops watch this are like, man, I want to have more control or say in my career. That was something that was important to me. So while the fulfillment from what I'm doing professionally now is great, it's also a huge part of being an entrepreneur. And I know you can relate to this is, having much more control of where I want to go, direction. I feel like a lot of people in law enforcement, many like I do, that if you boil it down, take away their pension and their accolades, they don't have a strong drive or work ethic, and they kind of rest behind the pay every 2 weeks, the security. It's hard to fire a cop unless you commit a homicide or something. So Where in the private sector, you cannot be lazy. You cannot be half in. You cannot be always focused on what's best for you. And you don't have good relationships in your life because you're a taker, you're a consumer, you're not a giver. So where business, I feel like all my core values, my personality lines up perfectly. And I'm already making so many relationships with people. And that's leading to not only revenue and profits, but also success and building great relationships. So I love every bit of it. How about you?
Absolutely. So, I kind of fell into, I guess, like a side hustle while I was in the police department. I started working in the financial services industry. And that's really what propelled me to move on and move out is, at first I thought there was nothing else I could do. So I learned there was something else I could do. And then it got to the point where it's like, you know what, I enjoy doing this more than I enjoy going to work. I go home to work on my other job. Why don't I transition that over? So what I do now is I work with police officers and firefighters and other first responders. Number one thing I like to do is help them identify and then conquer their biggest financial challenges. That would include, making sure teaching them and helping them make a plan to live off of so that all of their overtime money is extra. Because like we mentioned, the common thing that we hear from people, they won't leave the job is because of that paycheck.
Yeah, totally.
Because of that pension.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What I did to get out of the job is, using what I had learned in working in personal finance, I adapted to my own life. I was able to save up enough money so that I didn't have to worry about the time. I had enough saved up that I could go out on my own and I didn't have to worry. I knew that was there. And just having that option, even when I was still in the job, having that option and not having finances be a stressor in my life was a huge relief. It took that stress off the table.
Wow.
I knew that I had extra. Suddenly I was no longer, because one concern is, especially nowadays, it's like, if I get fired, am I going to get fired for this? Am I going to get fired for that? Cell phone videos and everything, leadership being afraid, that I didn't have to worry about that anymore. You know what? I can go out. I don't have to worry about protecting myself out on the street.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry because I have a backup plan. I have a backup money. So I like to help first responders build that, eliminate the financial stress, and then put them, if they are in a position where they're not fulfilled with work, they can't stand it, it's affecting them, whether it's physically, mentally, affecting their home, put them in a position that they can leave.
Oh, that's great, man.
Help them through my network and through what we want to do together, show them that there is a way to get out, show them that, and help them get financially stable to be able to do that.
Wow.
And for some people, it's just, they may love the job, they may love to stay. And honestly, I think you and I are on the same page. We want to encourage that and teach people and encourage people through extreme ownership and developing leadership within the agency to do that.
For sure.
But also put them in a position that when they retire, or they can retire, they might want to retire early. They don't have to stay the whole time. They don't feel like they have to stay to make the overtime money. That when they're ready to leave, they can step away.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I think it's awesome what you're doing, because the financial part of law enforcement and supporting police officers and making these great decisions so they're set up in the future. I mean, I didn't really grow up that way. I grew up definitely low income. That I never had that level of training growing up of saving for the future. And so the fact that, so I know I'm not alone in that. And it's the fact that you're doing that now for first responders is incredible. How was your wife when you were, thinking about leaving or contemplating, how was she handling all that?
So she was iffy, I guess, hesitant. Before I told her, I had the plan all up in my head. I had the numbers planned out and everything. And when I was able to tell her, I can go over an entire year, not make a penny. We're not going to run out of money and resources. And if I do go that long and don't make any money, then I just got to go department, go back to law enforcement because I wasn't meant for entrepreneurial world anyway. And I think, one thing I will say is that, especially for any significant others out there, wives or husbands whose spouse, has kicked the idea around and is not happy in the job. I think now that I've been out for, a year plus, my wife would, the way I am now and how much I've changed since I have left, she'd take that more than, she'd take a reduction in finances and money and have me the way I am now any day of the week.
Isn't that incredible? I mean, if that doesn't speak volumes about the law enforcement profession right now, and again, it's a noble profession. It's needed profession. I mean, we need the best to do it. So I don't think you and me are ever contemplating or trashing the profession, but it just goes to show you how damaging it is to people's quality of life. It just is. It's a fact. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, there's days where I look at stuff, and there's days that, I wish I was still in that position to be that person that's, I loved to be that person that responded to chaos and brought the calm back to it.
Yeah.
I loved being in that position. And sometimes I miss it. I miss that, that feeling of being the person that arrives, that person that was to be the first one there, to be able to handle that type of situation. It was, all the aftermath of after that, and whether it's criticism from leadership or courts or paperwork and, all of that stuff, where the pressure comes from and drives people away.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why you and me are doing what we can do, along with other people that have left the profession, doing what they can do to be an ally for other first responders, other police officers that we both know are out there right now, thousands of them, thinking about they're miserable, they're not happy, they want to leave, they feel like they're trapped. I mean, I can come up with 10 names right now that I talk to daily, so that are police officers in this area where I live in. So if they're out there, and we have to help set up a course for them. See, all the things I was afraid of leaving, I mean, almost 100%, maybe 99%, all the fears I had were just that. They were just fears, just insecurities. None of them ever came to be true. Like, oh, I don't have what it takes. I had somebody where I used to work at tell me, well, you're not going to make as much money as you make here. That was not true. It's a cruel world out there. I got to tell you, I met more generous and kind business people, or at least just as much as brothers I had in law enforcement. Because we know there's great relationships in law enforcement. Some of my best friends are cops. But, there's also a segment of people that like any other profession that, they're kind of always being the antagonist, or always trying to drive wedges into relationships, or they're not there for the right reason. So all those things they're just lies that were told to me. And I had nothing else to challenge that, other than I had to actually go through the process and learn for myself, which I learned they're all wrong. So it can be done. It can be done.
So those officers that you mentioned, those ones, they want to leave. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. They don't know what they do. What would your advice be to them?
So I just talked to an officer yesterday about this, and I said, we're doing the core value thing. I said, what are your core values? And then we're talking about it. And, and I forget exactly, specifically which ones were his, but in correlation to mine, as far as like duty, selflessness, courage, integrity, respect, those are things that guide me. So we're going through his, and I said, use that as a blueprint, as a guide. If you're not happy, think about your values and what means the most to you. Like when you look at your reflection, looking in the mirror, what means the most to that reflection looking back at you? If where you're at now doesn't align with that, I can tell you it's probably not going to work out unless there's a seismic shift, a command shift, a new administration. If culture doesn't change, your feelings are going to stay the same. So you can gut that out. Nobody can tell you what to do but you. Or you could try to find something that is in line with your values and also improve your quality of life. So, talking to him about this yesterday, it kind of made sense. He's like, oh, man. And he was earlier down the road. He's earlier in the path of contemplating leaving. He's not happy, but, and this is somebody that I didn't even know in law enforcement. I knew of him, but he reached out to me after I left because he felt more comfortable. And I feel like that is a huge problem right now is guys don't feel like they can go to their administrations and ask general advice. I didn't feel that way. Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What are your thoughts? I felt like it would always be, and I know a lot of officers like that. It wouldn't be true, honorable advice. It would be skewed or given with a certain motivation and not in my best interest. So I know a lot of cops feel that way. So that's what we have to do, you and me and everyone else, is help these guys, give them unbiased advice, objective advice about our experience and what we did and what they think they should do. But, at the end of the day, they have to walk that road themselves. They have to make the decisions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How about you? Any thoughts, how you could help them or what you would say to them?
Oh, it's, number one is, and I love the thing about core values. Your core values have to guide you. And that's, when you're leading your family, when you're at work, and everything that you do in life, you gotta have some core values to guide you so that you can tell the difference between right and wrong, and if it aligns with what you want and how you want to live your life. So, I loved how you touched on that. And, I just say, number one is, again, we're not encouraging anyone to leave. It's an honorable profession. It's an awesome profession. It just a lot of things need to change. And the first thing I would say is, when you go to work, start acting like you're a leader. Adopt extreme ownership. I know it got very easy for me and my agency, and we sit around and we complain. We complain about this, complain about that. See where you can take action. Rather than complaining, see how you can take action. Start acting like you're a leader in your department. Start bringing positivity in. And guys are going to look at you weird, and they're going to start making fun of you, but that's because you're going against the grain. If you want things to change and you want to be that change and grow that change, then start it. Bring your core values, develop your own core values, and bring those into the department. Start acting like that. That's one thing I wish I knew and I had started doing long before I started wanting to leave. I wish I took that ownership in my attitude and how I acted around other people at work, rather than being that complainer, rather than being the big loudmouth negative person. I wish I had started to develop myself as a leader to myself and a peer leader.
Totally.
Number two, if you really are done, if you've already made up your mind that you're going to leave, start making a plan and start taking action. You say, what am I going to do? You can't just sit and wallow. You have to take action. You got to decide, you got to take action, make your plan. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? What's it going to take? What do I need to save? What do I need to have for savings to be able to survive? Support my family, support myself during this transition. Make that plan, set a time, and make it happen.
Totally. You're absolutely right. Actually, when you were talking about this, so, when I was in the Army, we'd have our dog tags, and one of them would be a core value. So a lot of my personal core values are ones I adopted from the military because I gravitated them so much. So when I left the military, I had this one personally made for me as a way to never stray from who I am and who I believe I want to be. And so one dog tag is my family. It has everyone in my family, my immediate family, names on it. And then the other one has courage, honor, integrity, duty, and selflessness. So I just say this because we're talking about core values. I mean, I carry this with me around my neck every single day. I'm 40 years old, I'll be 41 next month. And I've done it since I got out of the military at 26 or 25. So
I love that. That is awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. And dude, I look at these probably when something happens and I catch a glimpse in the mirror, maybe I got my shirt all, get ready to get in the shower. I'll kind of look at it and reflect for where I'm at now in life and check in with my feelings and my thoughts. And am I doing this? Am I living by this? And there's been times I haven't been, and getting back to your point of we're human beings, and there's going to be cops that the goal was to have them do 25 years. I would love that. I mean, honestly, that is what I tell guys when I talk to them. I want you to make it to the end. I want you to leave at 25 years feeling just as fulfilled and rewarded as when you did on day one. But to do that, it doesn't come easy, and it doesn't come cheap, and it doesn't come free. You got to put work in. You got to be mindful. You got to work your mind just as well as your body. You got to incorporate, gratitude exercises, yoga, whatever you got to do to get yourself so you're just as positive and grateful in year 25 as year one. But have something that you fall back on that, For me, it's my dog tags, and I still carry it with me. It's also my wife, and the strong relationship I have with my wife, and I know you're the same way. But how many brothers and sisters do we know that don't have a spouse at home, or maybe they're going through a divorce, or maybe they, were in some sort of affair and didn't live as honorably as they could have been, which caused them to get divorced. And now their personal life's in turmoil. Like, there's so many things that we can do as individuals to help maximize our personal life and our professional life. And that's what I hope we can help accomplish with these interviews we do, these chats.
Absolutely. So one thing that definitely started changing my life was starting to really get involved in personal development. And read just as simple as reading books. So let me throw it out there. What's one, I always like to do this on talks like this. What would be your number one book recommendation for people out there?
Good one for me is Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. I don't know if you've read that one. Viktor Frankl was in Auschwitz concentration camp, World War II. He's a psychologist or psychiatrist by trade, by profession. So he had the understanding of how the human brain works when he's in not only a concentration camp, but the worst one in Auschwitz. I mean, not that they're all bad, but and his book, Man's Search for Meaning, takes you through his journey, his experiences being in a concentration camp, the brutality and the horror of, nobody in this modern day has lived through what he lived through. We've all have traumatic things in our lives, but not to that degree. And Viktor maintained a effervescent, positive spirit, a grateful mindset. And the whole book is about, it's great for first responders. Actually got recommended to me by a military fighter pilot who was on top of his game, got hurt. They took his wings from him, medically discharged him, and then he went down the hill and almost killed himself. Almost committed suicide. And he recommended this book to me as a way that helped me in 2019 to really come to grips with, because Victor's big thing is when you are, and this is a quote from his book, and I'm paraphrasing, but when you are unable to change the situation around you, you are only forced to change yourself. And it really resonated with me because there were a lot of things I was upset or frustrated by, resentful, angry, depressed, sad, going on around me, but I had only control of my thoughts, my behaviors, my actions. Really resonated with me. It really pulled me out. And I just recommended this book on Monday to somebody because they're going through a tough time. And so I'm going to give it to them this week. But that's probably my number one book right now for me. That could change next week. But how about you?
Oh, that's awesome. Actually, I haven't read that to my list. I'm just going to, there's so many great books that I could talk about, so many things that I found in books that have changed my life, the way I think, and have, developed me to the point I'm at now. But one thing I mentioned a little earlier, and that'd be, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Police officers listening to this podcast, it just talks a lot about leadership and how to be a great leader. And it might show you what is wrong with your police. It might show you are in leadership. I always say, if there's anyone that's going to listen, they're a sergeant, they're a lieutenant, they're a chief, they should read this book. They should read this book. They're going to find something useful in the book. It's absolutely incredible. It can completely change an agency if you adopt these philosophies.
I feel like that's another issue with law enforcement. Like, we have to help them. You can't just talk about it. You have to do it. And it requires hard work. But the reward and the promise is, if you do this and you invest yourself in it, your life will improve, your quality of life, your marriage, your relationship with your kids, your passion for your career, all that will improve if you not only read something, but embody and live it and adapt it in your life.
Yeah, if you just read it and you don't act or adopt anything or make any changes,
it
isn't going to do anything for you. You got to adopt it.
So, brother, wrapping up here, man. This is our first one. This is gonna be fun, man. This is gonna be a lot of fun. And this is all rooted in helping first responders, helping cops. Can't do it any better than that.
Yep. Whether you want to stay and get better, or and we support you 110%.
Totally. Well, until next time, brother.
It's been awesome, dude.
Yep. See you, man.
See ya.